The $500 monthly mistake keeping you poor. You know that feeling when you check your bank account at the end of the month and you're just confused? Like you made decent money this month. You weren't being crazy with your spending. You didn't buy anything ridiculous. And yet somehow there's barely anything left, maybe even less than last month. And you sit there scrolling through your transactions looking for the smoking gun, the one big stupid purchase that explains everything. But you can't find it. It's just a bunch of normal stuff. Coffee here, groceries there, that streaming service you definitely use, those work pants you actually needed, dinner with friends because you can't just never see your friends, right? And here's the thing that really gets you. You feel like you're being responsible. You're not out here buying jet skis or designer handbags or whatever financial gurus say irresponsible people buy. You're just living your life, a normal, reasonable life. My name is Ryan, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to effortlessly build wealth while others stay stuck in the same cycle of where did it all go for years, sometimes decades. And what I've discovered is that there's this massive gap between what we think is making us poor and what's actually making us poor. And that gap? That's where about $500 a month just evaporates. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Ryan, $500 a month, that's $6,000 a year. If I was just carelessly losing $6,000 a year, I'd notice, right? And that's exactly the problem. That's exactly why this keeps happening. Because you're not carelessly losing it, you're carefully, thoughtfully, reasonably losing it in ways that feel completely justified in the moment. And by the time you're done watching this, I think you're going to see your spending in a completely different light. Not in a never enjoy anything ever again way, but in a, oh wow, I've been playing a game I didn't even know I was playing, and I've been losing kind of way. Because here's what nobody tells you about building wealth. It's not about one big decision. It's about understanding the invisible architecture of how money actually moves through your life. The subscription graveyard. Okay, let's start with the obvious one because we have to get it out of the way, and also because it's more insidious than you think. Subscriptions. Yeah, I know, everyone talks about subscriptions. Cancel your subscriptions. Subscription creep. It's almost boring at this point, right? But here's what makes this different than you think. The average person, according to recent data, has somewhere between 12 and 15 active subscriptions. And when people are asked to estimate how much they spend on subscriptions monthly, they usually guess around $80 to $120. Want to know what the actual average is? About $273 per month. That's not a typo. People are off by more than double. Why? Because subscriptions are designed to be forgotten. That's literally the business model. But here's the deeper thing that nobody talks about. It's not just that you're paying for things you don't use, it's that subscriptions fundamentally change your relationship with value. Think about it. When you buy something outright, you make a decision. Is this thing worth this amount of my money right now? It's a finite transaction. But subscriptions? Subscriptions operate on this weird plane where you made a decision once, maybe a year ago, maybe 3 years ago, and it just keeps executing over and over without you ever being there. I was talking to my friend Sarah a few months ago, and she mentioned she was stressed about money. Standard stuff. And I asked her, just casually, how many subscriptions do you have? She said, oh, maybe 5 or 6. So we actually went through her bank statements together. Want to know how many she had? 19. 19 active subscriptions. And here's the kicker. She didn't even recognize 4 of them. Like she literally could not tell me what they were for. One was $14.99 a month for 2 years. She'd paid almost $360 for something she couldn't identify. But even the ones she recognized, most of them fell into this category I think of as zombie subscriptions. They're not dead, you do technically use them, but they're not really alive either. Like she had a meditation app subscription for $12.99 a month. Did she meditate? Yeah, sometimes. How often? I don't know, maybe twice last month? So she paid $13 for what amounted to, generously, 40 minutes of guided breathing. That's like $20 an hour for guided breathing. And look, I'm not saying subscriptions are evil. I'm not even saying you should cancel all of them. I'm saying you need to audit them like you're a forensic accountant investigating your own life. Because if you're like most people, you've got $80 to $150 going to things you either forgot about, barely use, or could easily replace with free alternatives. That's $1,000 to $1,800 a year, and that's just subscriptions. The convenience tax you don't see coming. All right, here's where it gets interesting. Let's talk about convenience, because convenience is the most expensive thing you can buy, and nobody tells you you're buying it. You know how you sometimes order delivery because, you had a long day and you just cannot with cooking tonight? Totally reasonable. I get it. We've all been there. But here's what's actually happening when you do that. Let's say you order a $15 burrito. In the restaurant, that burrito costs $12, but you're paying $15 because delivery apps mark up the menu prices. Then there's a delivery fee, let's say $3.99. Then a service fee, maybe another $2. Then you tip the driver, because you're not a monster, $5. Oh, and there's sometimes a small order fee if you're not hitting a minimum. So your $12 burrito just cost you $26. You just paid $14 for the convenience of not getting off your couch. And again, I'm not saying never do this. I'm saying understand what you're actually paying for. Because if you do this twice a week, which is pretty normal for a lot of people, that's $112 a month, $1,344 a year just for 2 meals a week. But it's not just food delivery. It's everywhere. It's the bottle of water at the airport instead of bringing your own. It's the premium parking spot because you're running late. It's the Amazon same-day delivery upcharge. It's paying for someone to assemble your furniture, mow your lawn, clean your gutters, wash your car, do your laundry. And look, sometimes you legitimately don't have time. Sometimes you're working 60-hour weeks, and outsourcing these things makes sense. But be honest with yourself about how much of this is about not having time versus how much of it is about not wanting to do something mildly inconvenient. I had this realization about my own life a couple years ago. I was getting my car washed every 2 weeks at one of those full-service places, $25 each time. That's $50 a month, $600 a year to have someone else wash my car. And I justified it because, my time is valuable, right? But then I actually thought about it. It takes them 30 minutes. If I did it myself, it would take me maybe 45 minutes. So I was paying $600 a year to save myself, 30 minutes twice a month? That's 12 hours a year. I was valuing my free time at $50 an hour, while simultaneously complaining that I couldn't afford to save more money. And it's not just the money, it's what the money represents. Every time you pay for convenience, you're making a trade, money now for time now. But you're also making another trade you probably don't think about. You're trading the opportunity for that money to grow in the future. That $600 a year in a basic index fund over 10 years with average returns becomes about $8,500. Over 20 years, almost $25,000. You're not just spending $600, you're spending what that $600 could become. The lifestyle creep nobody warns you about. Here's something weird about human psychology. We don't actually feel richer when we make more money. We just spend more, and not even on big, noticeable things, on tiny, invisible upgrades that feel like you've earned it moments, but add up to hundreds of dollars a month. Think about it. You get a raise. Finally, right? You've been working hard. Let's say it's $5,000 more a year. That's about $300 more per month after taxes. And you think, great, now I can finally start saving. But here's what actually happens. You start buying the nicer coffee. Not every day, but more often. That's an extra $20 a month. You upgrade your phone plan because why not? You can afford it now. That's $15 more. You start shopping at the nicer grocery store because the produce is better and you deserve to eat well. That's probably $60 more. You move to a slightly better apartment or neighborhood because you're doing well now and it's important to live somewhere that feels right. That's $150 more in rent. You buy nicer clothes because you're a professional now. Maybe that's $50 a month averaged out. You see where this is going? That $300 raise just became $295 in new expenses. You're saving an extra $5 a month. Congratulations. And the brutal thing is, each one of these decisions feels totally reasonable in isolation.
Better neighborhood, that's an investment in your quality of life. Better food, that's health. Better phone plan, you use your phone for work. But nobody makes these decisions one at a time. They all happen simultaneously, gradually, and before you know it, you're making 20% more than you were 2 years ago and somehow have less in your savings account. I call this the I deserve it trap, because you do deserve nice things. You do work hard. But the question isn't whether you deserve it. The question is, what are you actually optimizing for? Are you optimizing for the feeling of progress or for actual progress? Because here's the thing about feelings. They adapt fast. There's this concept in psychology called hedonic adaptation. Basically, you get used to stuff really quickly. The nicer apartment feels amazing for about 6 weeks, and then it just feels normal. The better coffee stops being a treat and starts being the baseline, and then you need the next upgrade to feel that same little hit of I'm doing well. It's a treadmill, and the treadmill is expensive. The it's only fallacy. Oh man, this one. This one is the one that gets everybody, including me, and I know better. It's only $8. It's only $15. It's only $3.99. These 3 words, it's only, are probably responsible for more financial regret than almost anything else, because our brains are really bad at understanding small amounts of money that repeat. Here's an example. Let's say you buy lunch out instead of packing it. The lunch costs $12. Not crazy, right? It's only $12. But you do this, let's say, 4 times a week because one day you pack. That's $48 a week, $192 a month, $2,304 a year. Suddenly, it's only $12 it's a decent used car. But it gets worse because these decisions compound in your brain. Once you've established that $12 for lunch is fine, your baseline shifts. Now a $15 lunch doesn't feel much different. It's only $3 more, right? And an $18 lunch, well, it's only $3 more than that. Before you know it, you're spending $20 on lunch and it still feels like it's only money. And this applies to everything. Uber instead of the subway, it's only $8 more. Premium Spotify instead of the free version, it's only $11. Extra guac, it's only $2. The nice shampoo instead of the drugstore brand, it's only $6 more. Individually, none of these things will break you. Collectively, they're probably costing you $200 to $400 a month in things that felt like nothing in the moment. I started tracking this in my own life about a year ago, and I was horrified. I found 37 separate instances in 1 month where I spent money on something and consciously or unconsciously thought, it's only. 37, and they ranged from $2 to $40, but the average was around $11. That's over $400 in a single month on things that felt like nothing in the moment. And here's the really sneaky part. These purchases are often genuinely small enough that they don't trigger your financial alarm system. Your brain has this threshold, right? If you're about to spend $200, you think about it, you deliberate. But $8? That doesn't even register. It's below the threshold of financial consciousness. It's invisible money, and invisible money adds up to very visible broke.
The social spending spiral. Okay, this one's gonna sting a little because it involves your friends, and nobody wants to admit that their social life is draining their bank account. But we gotta talk about it. Your friends are probably making you poor. Not on purpose. They're not bad people. But the social environment you're in has default behaviors, and those default behaviors cost money. And if you're not actively aware of it, you're just gonna keep bleeding cash. Think about your friend group's defaults. When someone suggests hanging out, what's the default activity? Dinner and drinks? That's easily $50 to $80 per person. Going to a show or concert? $60 to $150. Brunch on weekends? $30 to $50. Someone's birthday? Dinner plus drinks plus splitting the birthday person's meal? You're looking at $100. And here's the thing, you can't just not go. Well, you can, but then you're the flaky friend, the cheap friend, the one who's always saying no. Social connection is important. It's literally one of the biggest factors in human happiness and longevity. So I'm not saying become a hermit. I'm saying understand the game you're playing. Because what happens is this. You make $4,000 a month. Your rent is $1,200. Your other fixed expenses are maybe $800. You've got $2,000 left. And in your head, that feels like a lot. That's $500 a week.
But then you go out Friday night, $70. Saturday, you've got brunch plans, $45. Next Friday, concert with friends, $90. The following weekend, friend's birthday dinner, $110. That's $315 in 1 month just on social stuff. And that's actually pretty conservative. A lot of people are spending $500 plus monthly on social activities without even realizing it. And look, I'm not saying you should stop seeing your friends. I'm saying you should be intentional about the kinds of activities you default to. Because here's a secret. Most of your friends probably also feel financial pressure from these defaults. They're just not saying anything because everyone's playing this weird game of pretending they're totally fine spending this much money on casual socializing. I have a friend, Michael, who completely changed this dynamic in his friend group. He just started suggesting alternatives. Instead of let's get dinner, it was let's cook dinner at my place. Instead of let's get drinks, it was let's grab coffee and walk around the park. Instead of expensive birthday dinners, potluck hangouts. And you know what? Everyone was kind of relieved. Turns out a lot of his friends were also stressed about money but felt like they couldn't say anything. Now they do stuff together just as often, maybe more often, but they're spending a fraction of what they used to. The shift isn't about being cheap, it's about being creative. It's about recognizing that you're not actually paying for the social connection, you're paying for the default venue, and you can change the venue. The optimization trap. Here's a weird one that catches people who are actually trying to be financially responsible. Over-optimization. Stay with me here. You know how sometimes you'll spend 3 hours researching which streaming service has the best value, trying to save $5 a month? Or you'll drive across town to a gas station that's 3 cents cheaper per gallon? Or you'll buy the store brand everything, even when the name brand is having a sale that makes it cheaper? This is optimization theater. You're doing things that feel like financial responsibility, but are actually just wasting your time and sometimes even costing you more. Time is money, right? We all know this, but we don't act like it. If you make $25 an hour at your job and you spend 3 hours trying to save $15 on something, you've lost money. Your time was worth $75, you saved $15, you're net negative $60. But it doesn't feel that way because you didn't lose actual cash. You just lost time, and time is invisible until it's gone. I used to be terrible at this. I would spend hours, literally hours, building elaborate spreadsheets to optimize my grocery shopping. I'd track unit prices, plan meals down to the ingredient, map out which stores had the best deals on what items. And yes, I saved money, maybe $40 a month compared to just shopping normally, but I was spending probably 6 to 8 hours a month doing this. If I'd just worked 1 extra freelance gig in that time, I'd have made $200. I was optimizing myself into poverty. And here's the other thing about over-optimization. It's exhausting. And when you're exhausted, you make worse decisions. You've been so good, so careful, so restrictive, and then you snap and spend $200 on something stupid because you're tired of living like an accountant. I see this all the time. People who micromanage every dollar and then have these explosion moments where they just say fuck it and blow a bunch of money because they're tired of living like an accountant. The better approach, optimize the big things ruthlessly and don't sweat the small stuff. Your rent or mortgage is probably 25 to 35% of your income. Optimize that. Get the best deal you can, negotiate, move if you need to. Your car payment and insurance, yeah, spend an hour getting that down. But the difference between name brand and store brand ketchup, who cares? The extra $2 you'd save by going to a different grocery store? Not worth it. The cheapest possible toilet paper? False economy, my friend, false economy. The emergency that never comes. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. You probably don't have an emergency fund, and you're probably justifying it by saying you'll handle emergencies when they happen. Here's how this usually goes. You're living paycheck to paycheck or close to it. You know you should have savings. Everyone says you should have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up. But that feels impossible, right? Like you're barely making it through the month now. How are you supposed to save 3 months of expenses? So you tell yourself you'll deal with emergencies as they come. You've got credit cards. You've got family you could borrow from if things get really bad. And honestly, what are the chances of a real emergency anyway? And then your car breaks down. $800 to fix it. or your laptop dies and you need it for work, $1,200 for a new one, or you have an unexpected medical bill, or you lose your job and it takes 2 months to find a new one, and suddenly you're in debt, real debt, the kind that charges 19% interest, the kind that takes years to climb out of. But here's the insidious part. Not having an emergency fund doesn't just cost you when emergencies happen. It costs you every single month because you're operating without a safety net, which means you make different decisions. You take the better-paying job that you hate because you can't afford to take a risk on something you'd enjoy more but pays less. You stay in a bad living situation because you don't have first and last month's rent to move. You don't negotiate for a raise as hard as you could because you can't afford to lose this job. Not having savings makes you financially fragile, and financial fragility is expensive. It traps you in expensive situations because you can't afford the upfront cost of escaping them. And I know, saving feels impossible when you're already stretched thin. But here's the thing. You're already losing $500 a month to all the stuff we've talked about so far. The subscriptions, the convenience tax, the lifestyle creep, the it's-only purchases, the social spending you feel obligated to do, optimization that wastes more than it saves, the missing emergency fund, the cost of not paying attention, and the disconnect between current you and future you. And all of these little invisible money leaks, they add up to way more than $500 a month for most people, probably closer to $800 or $1,000. That's $10,000 to $12,000 a year. That's real money. That's life-changing money if you redirected it. But here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to finish this and feel like you need to cut out everything that brings you joy and live on lentils and sadness. That's not the point. That's not sustainable, and it's not even optimal because you'll just burn out and rebound. The point is awareness. The point is intentionality. The point is understanding that money is flowing out of your life constantly in ways you probably haven't examined, and some of that spending genuinely improves your life, and some of it just doesn't, and you get to decide which is which. Maybe you look at your subscriptions and realize you really do use and love all of them. Great, keep them. But maybe you find 3 you forgot about, and that's $40 a month back in your pocket. Maybe you decide delivery food twice a week is totally worth it to you, but you can meal prep the other 5 days. Maybe your social spending is non-negotiable because your friends are everything to you, but you suggest cheaper alternatives sometimes. Maybe you realize you actually hate your gym and you'd rather just run outside for free. The magic isn't in deprivation. The magic is in alignment. It's in making sure the money you're spending is actually buying you the life you want, not just the life you defaulted into. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Most people aren't poor because they don't make enough money. I mean, yes, some people genuinely don't make enough. Poverty is real and systemic and complicated. But most people watching this, you make enough. You just spend it in ways that don't align with what you actually want. You say you want financial security, but you spend like you want immediate gratification. You say you want to buy a house someday, but you spend like you want to impress people at brunch. You say you want to retire before you're ancient, but you spend like you're going to be young and healthy forever. And I get it. I've been there. I've made all of these mistakes. Hell, I still make some of them. But the difference now is I see them. I'm aware. And when I'm aware, I can choose. You can't fix what you can't see. So see it. Look at your bank statements. Track your spending for 1 month. Not to judge yourself, just to observe. See where the money actually goes. And then ask yourself, is this what I want? Is this getting me closer to the life I'm trying to build, or is this just happening to me? Because that $500 we've been talking about, that's $6,000 a year. That's $60,000 over a decade. That's $120,000 over 20 years. And if you invested it, if you put it in a basic index fund and let compound interest do its thing, that $500 a month turns into over $200,000 in 20 years. That's not theoretical wealth. That's actual, I can breathe easier, I have options, I'm not terrified of the future money. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to optimize everything. You don't have to live like a monk. You just have to pay attention. You just have to be intentional. You just have to decide that future you, the person you're going to be in 1 year, 5 years, 20 years, deserves the same consideration you give to current you, because that person is going to come. They're going to exist. and the only question is what kind of life are you building for them?